Welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping straight into a stack of sources. You've shared some really captivating stories by Oscar Wilde from Project Gutenberg.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Our mission here is to sort of unpack these, pull out the interesting bits, maybe some surprising details, and, see what wisdom or just plain amusement we can find.
Right. We've got 5 lined up. Lord Arthur Savile's Crime, then the Canterville Ghost, the Sphinx Without a Secret, the Model Millionaire, and finishing with the Portrait of Mr. W.H. Quite a mix.
Definitely. So yeah, get ready for a bit of a journey into wild world society parties, haunted houses, mysterious ladies, generosity, and, well, even literary conspiracies. Let's dive in.
Okay, kicking things off is Lord Arthur Savile's Crime, a study of duty. The setting is, well, instantly classic Wilde, isn't it? A big reception at Lady Windermere's.
Oh, absolutely. A wonderful medley of people, the source calls it. You've got cabinet ministers right next to radicals, bishops, beauties, the whole London scene.
And Lady Windermere herself sounds like quite the character. Witty, 40, focused on pleasure. And the detail about not changing her lover even when she changes husbands is very wild.
It is. And her main goal at this party, finding her chiromantist, her palm reader.
Mr. Septimus R. Podgers, her pet chiromantist. And the description's great, not mysterious at all, more like a family doctor or lawyer type. Bald head, gold specs.
Yeah, not what you might expect. Lady Windermere even calls him a performing lion, sort of playfully warning Lord Arthur.
And he does perform. We get these quick readings.
Yeah.
A duchess who likes comfort, not mysticism. Lady Flora the dog lover. Sir Thomas the adventurer who hates cats and radicals.
Right, it's this rapid-fire mix of palmistry and, honestly, just sharp social observation disguised as palmistry. Very specific details.
Exactly. It sort of grounds the whole thing.
Right.
But the focus lands on Lord Arthur Savile. He's young, engaged to Sybil Merton, and he's genuinely curious, wants his hand read.
And that's where it gets serious. Podgers looks at his hand, hesitates. The source says his face becomes a white mask of horror. Yeah. He tries to cover it up with vague pleasantries, charming young man. But Lady Windermere pushes, and then privately, Podgers tells Lord Arthur what he saw.
Which is?
Murder. Just flat out murder.
Okay, wow. And Lord Arthur, how does he take it?
He's stunned, feels like stone. The source describes him reflecting on destiny, doom, life as a badly cast play. His reason fights it, but he feels this tragedy hanging over him.
But does he just despair?
Well, here's the Wildean twist. That feeling passes pretty quickly. He's described as essentially practical.
Practical. About a murder prophecy.
Exactly. He decides it's his duty to commit this murder before marrying Sybil, to get it out of the way.
Get it out of the way. Oh, my goodness.
His only question becomes, whom to make away with, and since he has no enemies, it must be a relative. Just pure, cold logic applied to this madness.
That's dark and hilarious. So, attempt number 1.
Poison. Aconitine. For his elderly relative, Lady Clementina. He gets the poison, saying he needs it for a dog, visits her, calls it a wonderful American medicine.
So smooth.
She takes the box, but pockets the little capsule, the bonbon, to take later. Arthur leaves, postpones the wedding, tells Sybil there's a terrible difficulty. He waits in Venice, checking obituaries.
Does it work?
She dies, but naturally. Not from the poison, so attempt 1, total failure.
Right. Destiny is proving tricky.
Okay.
What's plan B?
Explosives. For his uncle, the Dean of Chichester, who collects clocks.
Of course he does.
He finds this famous conspirator, Herr Winkelkopf, who sees explosives as his art and orders a bomb disguised as a clock with a figure of liberty. Sets it to go off Friday at noon.
This is getting increasingly absurd.
And it fails, too. No explosion. Winkelkopf blames bad dynamite, offers more bombs, tells a story about a delayed barometer explosion. It's chaos. The Duchess confirms the failure. The Dean sent the clock to the stables because a dog had an explosion near it or something.
Oh, for goodness sake. So Lord Arthur must be beside himself.
He is despairing, feels like he's failed his duty, destiny's against him. Maybe he should call off the wedding. Then, one night, walking by Blackfriars Bridge, he sees someone leaning over the edge.
Don't tell me.
Yep, Mr. Podgers, the chiromantist himself. And Lord Arthur has a brilliant idea.
Oh, no.
He just walks up and pushes him into the Thames. Splash, hat floating, done.
He actually did it, just like that.
Just like that. And this, he feels, is a decree of destiny finally realized. He checks the papers, finds a report of a drowned chiromantist. Perfect. He's overjoyed, rushes to Sybil, wants to marry tomorrow.
Unbelievable. But there's always a final twist with Wilde, isn't there?
Always. After they're married, Sybil is sorting through Lady Clementina's things and finds that little silver box with the aconitine capsule still inside, old and dusty.
So Lady Clementina definitely died naturally. The first murder attempt was a complete non-event.
Exactly. The prophecy was fulfilled, yes, but by killing Podgers, not his relative, and entirely by chance impulse, not his elaborate planning.
And it ends with Lady Windermere calling Podgers an imposter anyway. Such a brilliant satire on fate, duty, high society.
Yeah.
Just, wow.
It really is. Okay, so from that dark comedy of duty, let's shift to the Canterville Ghost, a different kind of collision.
Right, the classic ghost story setup. Lord Canterville sells his haunted ancestral home, Canterville Chase, warning the buyer, an American minister named Mr. Otis, about the ghost. Been active since 1584, apparently.
And Mr. Otis's reaction is just gold. Pure American pragmatism. Skeptical. Says Americans have everything money can buy. They'd put a ghost in a museum, maybe make it a roadshow attraction.
He even offers to buy the ghost at a valuation. Dismisses it based on the laws of nature. Love it.
And the whole Otis family is like this. Mr. Otis writing his history, Mrs. Otis the energetic former belle, Washington the sensible son, except for his flowers and obsession with peerage, Virginia the gentle daughter, and the twins.
Ah, the twins. The only true Republicans, the source calls them. Pranksters, basically.
Definitely. So they arrive. The house has the spooky vibe, overcast, rooks, rain, the whole deal. And immediately they encounter the famous bloodstain.
The one Mrs. Emney, the housekeeper, says can't be removed. Blood of Lady Eleanor, murdered by her husband, Sir Simon, the ghost.
That's the one. And Washington Otis whips out Pinkerton's Champion Stain Remover and Paragon Detergent. Oh, yes. Scrubs it right off. Mrs. Emney faints in horror. Mr. Otis suggests docking her wages for breakages. It's just, the culture clash is immediate and hilarious.
So much for ancient curses. Mrs. Emney warns them trouble will come, though.
And it does, sort of. The stain reappears, changes color every day, red, purple, even green. The family starts placing bets on the color.
They're betting on the ghost's blood-stained colors.
They are. Then the ghost himself appears, clanking chains in the night. Mr. Otis hears him, goes out.
And offers him.
Rising sun lubricator for the chains, to quiet them down.
You can't make this stuff up. How does the ghost react?
He is understandably indignant. Runs off, gets hit by pillows from the twins. He's appalled. He's got this 300-year career of terrifying dupes and duchesses, and he gets offered oil and assaulted with pillows.
Poor guy. Well, not really. He murdered his wife, but still.
Right. He vows vengeance. But his attempts are just failures. He tries appearing in armor, trips, gets shot with pea shooters by the twins. He's physically hurt and just broken down by the sheer vulgarity and materialism.
So he gives up scaring them.
Not quite yet. He tries to keep the bloodstain going, plans a big third attempt with specific scares for everyone, like appearing as Dumb Daniel, an icy corpse for the twins.
Okay, that sounds genuinely creepy.
It should be, but as he sallies forth, he encounters another ghost.
What?
A fake ghost made by the twins, complete with a sign. Ye olde ghost, beware of ye imitations.
The twins made a fake ghost to scare the real ghost.
They did, and it works. The real ghost is terrified, flees, drops his dagger. Then he realizes it's just a curtain, a brush, a turnip. He's been tricked, foiled, and outwitted.
That's probably the lowest point in his spectral career.
Pretty much. He basically gives up after that. Too weak, nerves shattered, stops maintaining the bloodstain. They clearly did not deserve it. Still feels obligated to haunt, walk the corridors sometimes. But now he takes precautions.
Like what?
Takes off his boots, uses the rising sun lubricator on his chains.
He actually uses the oil. Oh, the humiliation.
But the twins aren't done. They set up tripwires, butter slides. The ghost suffers more falls and indignities. He's hemmed in, hides in stoves, just completely defeated.
So the Americans win through sheer practicality and lack of respect.
Seems like it. The family just goes back to normal. But then Virginia, the gentle daughter who never mocked him, finds him.
Ah, Virginia.
She finds him looking sad in the tapestry chamber. He talks about how tired he is, not having slept for 300 years. It's his only reason for existing, he says, rattling chains and groaning.
She feels sorry for him, even though he killed his wife.
She does. He sort of brushes off the murder as a purely family matter, but her sympathy reaches him. He tells her about the Garden of Death, a place of peace beyond the woods.
And he needs her help to get there.
Yes, because she has love, which the prophecy says is stronger than death. There's an old prophecy on the library window about a golden girl weeping and praying for a guilty soul.
And Virginia agrees.
She does. I'm not afraid, she says. She goes with him through the wall into some secret part of the house. The source mentions phantom shapes trying to tempt her, but her purity protects her.
Meanwhile, the family must be panicking.
Totally frantic, searching everywhere, thinking gypsies took her. Mrs. Otis is beside herself. But at midnight, there's a crash, music, and a panel opens Virginia's back. Pale, holding a small casket.
What happened?
She explained she was with the ghost, Sir Simon. He was wicked, yes, but truly sorry. He gave her the casket of jewels just before he, well, died properly, found peace.
So she helped him move on.
Seems so. She leads them to a secret chamber. There's a skeleton chained to a pallet. Virginia kneels and prays. There's a flash of light. The skeleton is gone, and almond blossoms suddenly bloom on the dry wood nearby.
Wow. God has forgiven him, Virginia says.
Exactly. So they hold a proper funeral for him at night. Virginia lays almond blossoms on the coffin. It's quite touching.
And the jewels? What about the casket he gave her?
Ah, well, Mr. Otis, ever practical, tries to give them back to Lord Canterville. Says they're valuable but too fancy for his simple Republican family, much more suited to the British aristocracy.
Yeah, Virginia.
The source says she, merely a child, has little interest in them. Lord Canterville is impressed by Mr. Otis's honor.
It's such a brilliant mix, isn't it? Satire, ghost story, a bit of sentimentality. The American way sort of bulldozes the haunting, but it takes genuine kindness to bring peace.
Perfectly put. Okay, let's move to something different again. The Sphinx Without a Secret, much smaller scale, more psychological.
Right. The narrator meets his friend Gerald Murchison in Paris. Gerald's obviously upset about something. The narrator guesses it's a woman.
And Gerald says he doesn't understand women, leading to that famous exchange. Narrator says women are meant to be loved, not understood. Gerald replies, I cannot love where I cannot trust. Sets the whole thing up.
So who is this woman he can't trust?
Lady Alroy, a widow. He saw her in a yellow carriage, became obsessed. Describes her beauty as molded out of many mysteries. Psychological, not plastic. Calls her the Gioconda in Sables. He's completely hooked by her mysterious aura.
He pursues her.
Oh, yes. Looks for the carriage for a week, finally meets her at dinner. She's cautious, speaks softly, seems afraid of being overheard. He falls passionately, stupidly in love, precisely because of the mystery.
But the mystery continues even after they meet.
Definitely. He asks to call, she hesitates, gives a specific time. He shows up, the butler says she just left. She tells him to have letters sent via library because of reasons. It's all very cloak and dagger.
He must be going crazy trying to figure her out.
He is. He suspects there's another man involved, but her manner seems too unapproachable for that. He decides to trust her. But then he sees her.
And sees her where?
Walking down a shabby street in Marylebone, Veiled, going into a house that looks like cheap lodgings, using her own key.
The plot thickens. What does he do?
He picks up a handkerchief she drops. Checks out the house. Feels like he shouldn't spy, but he's tormented. He goes to her fancy Park Lane house later that day.
And confronts her.
Yes. She's lounging, looking lovely, says she hasn't been out. He pulls out the handkerchief. She looks terrified. He questions her, declares his love, asks her to marry him, demands an explanation. She just cries, denies everything. He gets mad, frantic, says terrible things, and storms out.
Oh, dear. That sounds like the end of that.
Pretty much. She writes him a letter the next day. He sends it back unopened. He goes away. And then he sees her death notice in the paper, caught a chill, died in 5 days.
He must feel awful.
Yeah.
And still full of doubt.
Absolutely devastated and tortured. So he goes back to that house in Cumber Street, knocks on the door.
To find out the truth.
Yes. A respectable woman opens up. He asks about rooms, shows Lady Alroy's photo. The landlady recognizes her, says she was her best lodger, but hasn't seen her in months. Rent is overdue. She asks when Lady Alroy is coming back.
And Gerald has to tell her she's dead.
Right. The landlady is surprised, then reveals the secret. Lady Alroy paid her 3 guineas a week.
For what? A secret meeting place?
Nope. Merely to sit in my drawing rooms now and then.
Just sit there.
That's it. The landlady is insistent. She always came alone, saw no one, just sat, maybe read, had tea. That was the big secret.
There was no secret.
Exactly. The narrator tells Gerald she just had a mania for mystery. She rented the rooms for the thrill of having a secret, of going there veiled, pretending to be a heroine. She was, as the title says, a sphinx without a secret.
Wow. All that angst and obsession over. Nothing, really. Just a desire for secrecy itself.
Yeah.
Poor Gerald.
Yeah, he couldn't accept it. It's a sharp little story about perception versus reality, isn't it?
Definitely. Okay, let's lighten the mood a bit with The Model Millionaire. This one feels more like a fairy tale.
It does. Very charming. We meet Huey Erskine. Great guy, good looking, popular. Everyone likes him, but he's poor.
And he's in love with Laura Merton, but her dad, the colonel, says no marriage until Huey has 10,000 pounds, which Huey definitely does not have, so he's pretty glum.
Right. He's all charm, no cash. He visits his friend Alan Trevor, the painter. Trevor likes Huey precisely because he's charming and generous, even if not, intellectually brilliant. Trevor appreciates people who are bet and beautiful, as he puts it.
A bit harsh. So Huey goes to the studio.
And Trevor is painting this incredible picture of a beggar man, really wizened, ragged, looks utterly miserable. The model himself looks the part.
And Huey, being the kind soul he is,
Feels incredibly sorry for the old man, digs into his pocket and gives him the biggest coin he has, a sovereign.
a whole sovereign. That must have been a lot for Huey.
It was. The beggar smiles, thanks him. Huey leaves, goes to see Laura, probably gets told off for giving away money he doesn't have.
Probably. What happens next?
Later that night, Huey runs into Trevor at their club. Trevor mentions casually that the old beggar model was asking all about Huey, his name, his situation, the 10,000-pound problem.
Huey must have been horrified. Trevor telling his private business to a beggar.
Exactly. He's annoyed, but then Trevor drops the bombshell.
Which is
The old beggar wasn't a beggar. He was Baron Hausberg.
the Baron Hausberg, one of the richest men in Europe.
The very same. By all of London, Trevor says. The rags were just an old suit he was posing in.
Oh, Huey? Gave him a sovereign. I can just imagine his face.
Utter dismay. Trevor thinks it's the funniest thing ever. Teases him, says he'll never see the sovereign again, jokes about the Baron's business being other people's money.
But the Baron wasn't offended.
Quite the opposite. Trevor predicts he'll be amused and maybe impressed. And sure enough, the next morning, a messenger arrives for Huey.
From the Baron.
Yep. A card from Baron Hausberg with his compliments, enclosing a check for 10,000 pounds.
No way, just like that.
Just like that, a wedding present. So Huey and Laura get married. Trevor's the best man. The Baron gives a speech at the wedding.
And it all ends with Trevor's great line.
Right. Millionaire models are rare enough, but by Jove, model millionaires are rarer still.
It's such a sweet, simple story. A reward for kindness, playing with appearances. Lovely.
It really is. Okay, final one. And this one's quite different again, much more complex. The Portrait of Mr. W.H.
This one dives into literary theory, obsession. It starts with the narrator and his friend Erskine talking about literary forgeries.
Yeah, and Erskine poses this intriguing question. What if someone believed a theory so much they'd commit forgery to prove it? Which leads him to tell the story of Cyril Graham.
Cyril Graham, Erskine's friend, died by suicide. Fascinating, apparently, but foolish. Loved poetry, acting, was amazing as Rosalind at Eton.
Right, Erskine was devoted to him. Cyril sounds like a typical Wildean aesthete, believed it was better to be good-looking than to be good.
And he had this theory about Shakespeare's sonnets.
A very specific one. Based purely on reading the sonnets themselves, he decided they weren't addressed to a nobleman like Lord Pembroke, which was the common idea, but to a young boy actor in Shakespeare's company named Willie Hughes.
Willie Hughes. Where do you get that from?
From clues within the poems. He argued the emotional tone didn't fit a patron, but an actor. Pointed to lines about the art of the dramatist, promising immortality through plays, eternal lines, lines about having millions of strange shadows, actors living with infection and false painting, stage makeup artifice.
Okay, that's quite detailed.
Oh yeah. He even found puns he thought hinted at the name Willie Hughes, like on the word use, sounding like Hughes. He claimed this theory made difficult sonnets make sense.
Did Erskine believe him?
Erskine was fascinated, found it convincing internally, but he wanted external proof, independent evidence. Cyril got really enthusiastic about finding some.
How did he?
Well, Cyril announced he had found proof, a portrait. He showed Erskine this small, old-looking painting of a beautiful young man, sort of effeminate, in black velvet with masks of tragedy and comedy nearby, and painted on it was the name Master Will Hughes.
Proof, or maybe not.
Exactly. Later, Erskine tracked down the painter, an artist named Mr. Isaac, who confirmed he'd painted it recently for Cyril Graham.
So it was a fake. Cyril forged the proof.
He did. Erskine confronted him, saying the forgery destroyed the theory's credibility.
How did Cyril react?
He argued the forgery didn't matter to the truth of the theory. It was just a concession to convince Erskine. They had a huge argument.
And then?
The next morning, Cyril was dead. Shot himself, apparently. There was blood on the portrait's frame near the fake name. He left Erskine a letter.
What did the letter say?
It reiterated his absolute belief in Willie Hughes, said the forgery was minor, and his death was a sacrifice to prove his faith and entrust the theory to Erskine.
Wow. That's intense. How did Erskine take that?
He was horrified, called it tragic, foolish, mad. He totally rejected the theory then, called it perfectly unsound, believed the sonnets were for Pembroke, end of story. He argued, quite reasonably, a thing is not necessarily true because a man dies for it. He covered up the suicide aspect.
So Erskine dismissed it all. But the story doesn't end there, does it?
Not at all, because when Erskine tells the story to the narrator becomes instantly convinced.
He believes in Willie Hughes, just from hearing the story.
Completely. Reads the sonnets, finds the theory confirmed everywhere, feels he has his hand upon Shakespeare's heart. He gets totally swept up in it, even expands on the idea, imagining Willie Hughes dying in Germany.
The theory takes hold of him.
Deeply. But then, just as suddenly, he loses faith. Completely. Poof! Can't explain why. Maybe expressing it exhausted the passion. Willie Hughes becomes a mere myth again. His reason takes over.
This is like a game of intellectual hot potato. Who gets convinced next?
You guessed it. The narrator goes back to Erskine to apologize for a strong letter he'd sent earlier while convinced, and finds Erskine sitting with the forged portrait.
And Erskine says?
Erskine says the narrator's letter convinced him. He now believes the theory is perfectly sound. Willie Hughes is an absolute reality.
Oh, this is incredible. The belief just transfers.
Exactly. The narrator, now skeptical again, tries to argue Erskine out of it, calls it a phantom, a puppet. But Erskine is resolved. He'll devote his life to proving the theory, honoring Cyril.
Does he find any proof?
No. Sometime later, Erskine gets sick. He sends the narrator a letter saying he tried, failed to find verification, but he still believes. And like Cyril, he'll give his life for it. The narrator thinks he's mad, assumes suicide again.
But another twist.
The final twist. The narrator talks to Erskine's doctor, assuming suicide, but the doctor corrects him. Erskine died of consumption. He was already dying, knew he only had days left. He wrote the letters, yes, but he died naturally, resigned. His death wasn't a sacrifice for the theory, though his obsession framed it that way.
So the theory didn't claim another life directly, but the obsession lasted till the end.
Precisely. And Lady Erskine gives the forged portrait to the narrator. It hangs in his library. Art friends admire it, think it's by a different artist. The narrator keeps the real story quiet.
But does he still think about it?
He does. He ends by saying sometimes he looks at it and thinks, there is really a great deal to be said for the Willie Hughes theory. The possibility lingers.
What a story. About belief, obsession, how ideas spread, the nature of truth and evidence. Really makes you think.
It absolutely does. So we've really covered a lot of ground here, haven't we? From Lord Arthur's very strange sense of duty.
Yeah, driven by that prophecy, to the Canterville Ghost battling modern American, difference in cleaning products.
Then Lady Alroy's self-made mystery, the simple kindness rewarded in The Model Millionaire, and finally this deep dive into literary obsession and the power of a theory in Mr. W.H.
It's amazing how Wilde uses these different forms, satire, ghost story, psychological sketch, fable, literary mystery, to explore similar themes, really. Appearance versus reality, the power of belief.
Exactly. How characters construct their own realities based on prophecies or social codes or personal manias or even literary interpretations, and how those constructions sometimes clash dramatically with, actual events or simpler truths.
Like Lord Arthur's elaborate murder plans versus just pushing a guy into the river. Or Gerald's complex theories about Lady Elroy versus her just wanting a quiet room.
Or the immense intellectual and emotional weight given to the Willie Hughes theory versus the fact that it might all be based on nothing concrete, just interpretation and, forgery and belief.
It really makes you think about how often we operate on assumptions or narratives rather than just facts. How easily a compelling idea, whether it's true or not, can shape actions and even lives.
That's a great takeaway. These stories, in their witty and sometimes tragic ways, really probe that, how conviction forms, how it spreads, how it holds up or doesn't against reality.
So here's something to maybe chew on. If belief can be so powerful, so contagious, even when detached from proof, as we see in some of these stories, especially Mr. W.H., what does that tell us about the responsibility that comes with sharing ideas or theories, especially ones that stir up strong conviction? Where does enthusiasm cross into dangerous obsession?